Wisconsin voters head to the polls tomorrow, casting their ballots in a big primary race for the state Supreme Court. The seat was left open when Justice Pat Roggensack announced his retirement. Here's a look at the candidates running to replace him. Jennifer Darrow is a Waukesha County judge who recently presided over the trial of the Christmas parade suspect. Everett Mitchell is a judge in Dane County, while Janet Protasewicz sits on the bench in Milwaukee County. Dan Kelly used to serve on the state Supreme Court but lost his re-election bid in 2020. Our sister station in Madison asked all four candidates what sets them apart from the others. Here's what they had to say.
I am someone who brings more judicial experience to this race than any other candidate, having served now 11 years on the trial court bench.
I want the voters of Wisconsin to understand that our state really deserves a justice that is able to make sure that all of the issues are on the table.
You know, I have a body of work that's been developed over several years that is not comparable to any other candidate in this race.
And the primary is tomorrow. Polls open at 7 a.m., close at 8 p.m. The top two vote getters advance to April's general election. Now, this race could drastically change the political landscape of the state on issues like abortion and congressional district maps. Northern News Now's Larissa Millis spoke with leaders from both parties about the impacts.
An election being watched across the nation.
New York Times calls Wisconsin's state Supreme Court race the biggest and most unusual election of 2023.
The open seat on Wisconsin's 7-seat Supreme Court will tip the bench to the left or right. Conservatives have maintained the majority in recent years.
The liberals want to turn back 25 years worth of conservative reform in this state.
The upcoming court will likely hear cases on district map disputes and the state's 1849 ban on abortion, which went back into effect when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last summer.
This election will determine whether challenges to our totally archaic and unconstitutional 1849 ban on abortion will get a fair hearing.
Ben Wickler, the chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, says other issues like ballot drop box bans and election result confirmations could be impacted as well.
We have to fight back. We need to fight back to ensure that voters know just how extreme these Republican candidates for state Supreme Court in Wisconsin are.
Republican Party of Wisconsin Chairman Brian Shimeen says his party is concerned about other issues.
Folks on the left are trying to use the abortion issue to take people's attention away from law and order, from conservative reform, from concealed carry, from Act 10, from school choice. They need that diversion.
Both Wickler and Shimeen say their parties are hoping for a large voter turnout this spring, both in Tuesday's primary and in the April 4th general election, saying despite the odd election year, it's a race that holds a lot of importance. In Duluth, Larissa Millis, Northern News Now.
And we'll have results for you this time tomorrow night.